Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. It's an interesting time in EVE. It is EVE Vegas weekend, so I will try to catch some of that. We already have a new trailer, which is like a free-to-play trailer. That's pretty damn cool. One thing to note, of course, is that the expansion has been delayed by 1 week, so it's no longer November 8th, but it should be November 15th. It's understandable if you look at the state of some of the new features on CC, so I'm all for it. I would rather CCP polish the expansion than we get a broken one. Of course, we are here for the market, so let's get over there and let's jump right in. That may give you an idea of what's coming as the extra material right there. But first of all, we are going to check on plex at 50 seconds. It's up a little bit, but you can see some hesitation. We have 1,250 million pretty much for the sellers, for the buyers 1,200 million. So that is definitely a pretty high buy price, selling those directly. But you can see on the charts, and normally if I just set 1 to around 6 months, we'll get an idea right there. You can see we actually have a day with 1,230 million as the average, and here we're just trying to go back down a little bit. So there is some hesitation in plex. It's a little bit understandable. It is a pretty sharp rise, a straight up rise for since July basically. To a pretty high point for plex, even historically speaking. I think we may have touched on these prices before, but I don't think that we've had these for any substantial amount of time. The real question is, should you sell now? I mean, if you bought for 900 million right here last summer, then selling now gets you a very nice profit. Or should you gamble on the expansion creating a final push up? Should you gamble on free-to-play players creating extra demand? Me personally, I'm selling very slowly. So the last one that I sold was above 1.250 billion. And the next one that I'm aiming for is 1.260. So I will probably set up a sell order, but at the moment I'm still keeping an eye on it if the price ever actually reaches that price point. Looking at the volumes, it could do so pretty quickly, because all you've got is these 4 sell orders, 73, 315, and 5 of them at around 1.250, and then we're at 1.266. So if this one starts to go down in volume substantially, I may just plonk down one plex at 1.260. That should get picked up in the drive towards this price range. But after that, I think the closer we get to 1.3 billion, the harder it is going to get. But the expansion may just be the final push to create the top for the plex market. And at that point, of course, you want to try to sell what you can. Still, at the moment, on the increased prices, I found that selling for 1.2 billion, selling for 1.250 billion has been very easy, because the prices tend to go up, and so a single order actually tends to get picked up decently quickly in this environment. So at the moment, it's a good time to sell already, in my opinion. If you want to take all your profits now, I wouldn't blame you, but I'm personally still going to hold on to at least most of my plex and wait for the effect on the expansion and the free-to-play players will bring to the game. So interesting time though, and a good time to sell. Not a good time if you actually want to plex your accounts for free, because you have to make quite a bit of ISK in order to do that. Multiple pilot training certificates, good, it remembers 1, 2, 3, 4, that's only 5 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. This is actually the 6-month chart. You can see, of course, that it mirrors plex very closely. We have 1.26 billion on the data points here, but again, you can see the hesitation as the averages go down. You can see the 5-day moving average slowing down as well. We may get a bit of a lull as well with the delay of the expansion, but there is really not that much to say, except that the rise in price has been much more uniform in the plex market itself, but this is following very closely. Pilot body resculpt next. Let's take a look at that. This is pretty crazy. You get a data median daily price here of 280 million, and then here you've got 400 million. Is it because of the free-to-play? Yeah, someone basically bought everything, gambling on the pilot body resculpt, I think for the free-to-play players. You're not really noticing that in the volumes that much. But so someone has made a really big speculative move on the body resculpt market. One thing, of course, is that the volumes have always been pretty small, like less than 10 every day for the body resculpt. So someone with deep pockets can very easily manipulate this market this way. The question is, of course, at this point, it probably becomes very profitable to turn your Aurum into Pilot's Body Resculpt certificates, and so we may actually see a decent amount of supply drop this price very quickly, which means that whoever has bought everything up to 400 million ISK, because all of these are new, may be sitting on a stock for a very long time. So it's basically a long-term gamble here, I think. Just pick up your body resculpts at around 280 million and gamble that the alpha players will create so much demand that the prices will go up once they come to the game. Skill extractors next. That should be it's a different chart because of course it's been in the game for less than a year. That's a little bit annoying, and it does mean that I have to reset it, but it doesn't happen that often anymore, so alright. You can see that this has been increasing in price July, August again as the bottom, exactly in line with the Plex market. It's normal, they're tied together very closely because basically you need to create these from the Aurum store as well. So currently median daily price of 290 million. Sellers are at 296 million, buyers are at 285 million. Decently close margin. Volumes stay pretty decent here, 77, 30, 50. People are still bringing a lot of these skill extractors to the market, and here you can clearly see the increase in price just as in Plex. For the skill injectors then, let's take a look at that. We also have an increase in price, but it's been a stranger picture here because in September we actually dove as low as 550 million for skill injectors. I think I said that this was probably a good time to buy. I didn't do it myself because I was saving my ISK for the new blueprints that are going to come out for the engineering complexes. But as it turns out, it was indeed a pretty good price because we already see an increase up to 630 million, 640 on a data point. We see the same hesitation that we're seeing in Plex here, just a little bit of a slowdown in the last few days or so. But yeah, skill injectors have gone up in price, together under pressure, of course, from the increased price of the skill extractors, the plexes. And as a result, overall, I think they're still pretty cheap. 640 million is still just half the price of a plex. So they're still pretty cheap. Basically, the skill points inside the injectors are going for a pretty cheap price. And they're currently selling for 643 million and the buyers are at 624. That's only one of them, 610, 600 million actually. So this could actually go down pretty quickly on lack of demand, I think. If people don't pick up these from the sellers and someone needs to liquidate them, they'll start selling to the buy orders here, and then you're back below 600 million very quickly. So I would say that compare that to the Plex prices that have gone up to 1.2 billion, and just look at the amount of buy orders that are there to compete with the other buy orders. It's a lot more than in the skill injectors. So I would say that the skill injector price is very interesting because the increase, of course, has been over just 2 months. So this is a much better trade time-wise, but it's also probably a riskier product because of the lack of buy orders here. You could actually force the price back down very quickly just by filling quite a few buy orders, and of course if the rest of the player base doesn't jump on the sell orders too much. The price 630 million though is decently close to the buy orders, so I think that does mean that the sell orders, so I think that does mean that the sellers mostly dictate the price. Still, the very low volumes here I think would be decently worrying. A decrease in demand can have a very sharp impact on skill injectors, which may be part of the explanation why during the summer here you basically have lower demand, lower activity in the game, while skill injectors took such a beating down even through September, whereas skill extractors have basically had a slow bottom for several months during the summer and then recovered basically in a straight up line together with plex towards the expansion. So the skill injector market is interesting because it still has huge volumes here as well. Let's see, yeah, 2 front pages, so hundreds of skill injectors coming in here, and it tends to do that pretty much every day. A lot of these actually do get bought out as well, but the lack of buy orders here, I would say, make this a riskier product to gamble on. Next up, let's see for some mineral stuff at 1035. 1035, there we go. As always, we will start with titanium. We get a weird chart because we come from the skill injectors. But let's go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Here we go. A good tip that I got is that you can, so if you want to see more volatility in a very flat chart, you can do so with the mouse wheel button. But at this point, for instance, I don't want to go any lower, so you can go underneath the chart and then it'll actually push that one up. So it's definitely a good tool, but you have to know that where you place your mouse cursor will also depend on where it's going to scale the chart. So here is the, we're actually starting with titanium, not with pyrite. There we go. Here is titanium. Over the last 6 months, actually decently flat, right? Start as 6 ISK, ends at around 6 ISK. Bit of a dip, the summer dip as always, with a low point of around 5 ISK. Here I said don't sell, keep your titanium. Can we go up to 7 ISK? I think it is possible, but we need a major war with super capital losses and things like that. I think the new engineering complexes are a lot cheaper than the citadels. They need less minerals, so I actually think that the impact there is going to be more limited. Still at the moment, right, sellers are at 621, 622, buyers are at just below 6 ISK, so it's still an okay time to sell your titanium. We're basically on an average price at the moment, but if you want to gamble on a major war happening, then holding on to some stocks may be a good idea as well. Next up, we've got pyrite. So we saw that pyrite's actually been going down since June, July already. Had a pretty tough summer, but it's actually going even lower here, breaking 8 ISK on the median daily price is not good news. So I would definitely not be selling pyrite right now. 877 for the sellers, 830 for the buyers, and it's a little bit weird to, I may want to just zoom in on that for one moment. Yeah, here we definitely get a median daily price today so far of like around 8 ISK or less than 8. No, actually here is 8 ISK. So 8.5 ISK pretty much is currently the average. I would say this is a very low price, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. There we go. Can I do like that? Is maybe better. All right. At the moment, yeah, very difficult to make any money from mining pyrite. I mean, you're making some baseline money, of course, it is mining, but it's a very bad price. You can see that historically as well. Before the 6 months on this 1 year chart, you can see that we basically were at 10, 11 ISK pretty consistently. Then we had the dive down June, July, and since then it's consistently been under pressure. So for the sellers here, pretty much still a full front page of sellers, including 300 million, 67 million here. On the buyers though, the good news is we have 350 million coming in here. The buyers in the last 24 hours also have 135 and 100 million. So it's a decently balanced picture for pyrite at the moment. And as I've said, a major war increasing demand could finally push pyrite back up. It's just not happening right now. Next up, we've got Mexalon. Let's take a look at that one. Keep the 6 month chart. Yes, it does. So here we have the increase in price in May, which was quite substantially. Then the surprisingly strong summer months for Mexalon, managing to maintain a price of 72 to 74 ISK. Then the inevitable decline of the price, August, September, The reason for that is all the other high-sec minerals were under such pressure that at some point too many miners were going to switch to mining for Mexalon, causing the decrease in price. But the good news is it still seems to be a bottleneck, and even now at the latest dates we have a price of just under 70 ISK, which is very respectable. So mining for Mexalon and selling that at the moment is probably going to be your best ISK per hour if you're mining in high-sec. On the sellers and buyers, we are at practically 70 ISK for the sellers, 66 ISK for the buyers, and the volumes not that high, 42 million here, 36 million and 30 million there. The buyers are at 15 and 84 million, but that's already a couple of days old, so it's gonna be under pressure a little bit, as you can see here in the last few days, because there's more supply than the very low demand that we're seeing at the moment. But it's still an okay price. At least your ISK per hour is not as abysmal as it is for pyrite, for instance, and probably for isogen, which is the next one. It's even on the 6-month chart, it's becoming difficult to see, but you do, we could actually push the chart back up a little bit, push it down a little bit as well, so we see more detail. You can see that we started before the summer at around 100 ISK, which is probably just an average price, really. Here we have 100 ISK at the top, but you can see on the rest of the 1-year price chart below here that this is actually just averaging out. We've been way above that as well. But since the summer slump here with low points of 76 ISK, median daily prices below 80 ISK is pretty damn crazy. We tried to jump up a little bit in September, but only reached 88 ISK, so we never really broke 90 back, and now we're back under pressure heading towards 80 ISK on the median daily prices. And your ISK per hour mining isogen is very, very low. Of course, no ores mine only isogen, but it's always a mix. But yeah, a focus on Mexalon, I think, is the best thing to do if you're mining to make liquid ISK at the moment. So 80 ISK, 81, 82 ISK for the sellers, 75.10 ISK for the buyers is very cheap isogen at the moment. Historically speaking, as you can see on the 1-year chart, we're basically at an all-time low at the moment. Next up we've got Noxium. This one is basically an all-round mineral because you can buy it both, get it both from high-sec, null-sec and normal space, and low-sec of course. And so any changes, whether it is from null-sec mining or from high-sec mining that increases yield, continues to add pressure to this. Honestly, it's basically moving decently sideways. 441 ISK starting 6 months ago, 423 on average now. So after August we had a little bit of an extra dip. The low point of 380 ISK was quite worrying, so you could have purchased some of this at around 400 ISK very easily, but it remains a risky gamble to say that this is going to go higher, basically because of the Rorcal changes, which have already decreased the price of null-sec minerals a lot. This could add more pressure to the Noxium price as well. So a war may change this a little bit, but I think that basically Noxium is in a very bad spot because it's become such a commonly available mineral, much more than some of the others, because you would never really focus on Mexalon or isogen in null-sec unless we're in an exceptional price territory. But Noxium just basically gets mined everywhere regardless of what happens, and there's so much supply of it that the price is at historically low price points at the moment. This stuff used to be worth 800, 900 ISK, sometimes even 1000 ISK on very high price points. So basically the mineral rebalance gutted the Noxium market. There's too much of it available to go anywhere else. And the fact that it comes from all spaces, I think means that it's very difficult for Noxium to crawl out of this hole. Even a war may actually be a problem, because any increase in price could just basically entice high-sec miners who don't have any problems with a big null-sec war to start mining for Noxium a lot, try to make that money, so they'll keep the pressure on that to go down. If stuff like Mexalon goes up substantially to very high prices, like around 80 ISK, then that is because there is so much demand from it from null-sec that high-sec can't keep up, and in null-sec no one is going to mine actively for Mexalon, and as a result you get possibly, I think, higher increased prices on these high-sec minerals than on Noxium. Unfortunately, I would personally not gamble on buying Noxium actively myself. When it comes to the null-sec ones, let's take a look at Zydrine. It's not going to be a very pretty picture at the end here. So we can push the chart down just a little bit, and then we can push the charts up a little bit as well, so you can see the decline in price since June here, with a high point of 1281 ISK. Here is the pressure. We took a decent slump down to 1022. This was actually speculatively speaking a doable increase in price, because you can see that we went back up for 10%. That basically means that you can make some money buying at the very low point right after the sharp decrease in price. Unfortunately, then we had the Rorcal changes come in, I think around October here, early October, which meant that the expected supply for Zydrine after the expansion is going to be huge. And so we can see now that we're basically dropping to 6-month lows below 1000 ISK. That is pretty crazy. So Zydrine selling for 975 ISK, buyers are at 922 ISK. You can clearly see that we took a really big hit from the expected Rorcal changes. It's also a little bit all over the place here on the median daily price. Sometimes you're at 957, sometimes at above 1000. So basically I would say that the volumes are pretty high. People are also stocking up on the Zydrine. Luckily, during this period I bought a little bit of Zydrine, but I always said don't buy this stuff for speculation purposes. Buy it because you plan to use it later on in industry. So I don't consider the Zydrine that I bought here as major losses. I just consider that as having stocks ready for my industry. And of course I could keep buying at the moment if I feel like I need more of it for an even cheaper price, which is good for me. For the null-sec miners though, these are abysmal prices right now. Supply, half a front page, and still 5 million, 3 million, 3.8 million, 2 million coming in here as well. Demand is trying to pick Zydrine up at 922 ISK, which is like crazy low. So yeah, it's very difficult. But I think that basically the Rorcal changes is going to have that impact, because a lot of the safer null-sec spaces are just going to take advantage of the big boost there and will risk the Rorcal at max yield, which means that it's stuck there for a while. But it basically is such a potential amount of ore that I think a lot of alliances are going to allow risking it. Next up here we've got Megasite. Of course, a very similar picture. Again, October breaking the camel's back with the announcement of the Rorcal changes, going from around 1285 ISK down to 1000 ISK. Basically a loss of 25% just like that in a month because of CCP announced changes, but I think they could be right. So buyers are already at 976 ISK, so trying to pick up that cheap Megasite. Again, very similar picture of course to Zydrine. Those two are to be expected to become the first two victims of the high yield Rorcal. And yeah, I bought some on this way down here in this period, but again, I only bought my Megasite because I was planning to use it anyway, not to resell it at a higher price. So I hope no one else did. Next up, we still have a Morphite in the mineral market. Let's see if that one is diving down. No, not exactly. So you can see the last great opportunity was to buy below 10,000 ISK. Then we had the Citadel expansion with a nice doubling of the price in a matter of a few weeks. We recovered from that and we're currently averaging around 9,000 ISK for Morphite, which is decently cheap. I've bought some Morphite at like 9,700, 600 I think, as a speculative hopes. The reason is Morphite, unlike all the other minerals, is tied to the Tech 2 market. And so in case of a big war, stuff like stealth bombers, interceptor get flown a lot, get lost a lot as well, and they could actually boost up Morphite a lot in shorter order, I would say, than the mineral losses in general. Just because there tend to be lower stocks of Morphite than of all of the other minerals used for Tech 2 production. So as a result here at the moment, I would say if you have the ISK lying around and you want to take a gamble at something that may go up in price substantially in case of a war, I would gamble on morphite rather than any other mineral at the moment. Of course, I'm not saying pour all your ISK into morphite, that would be a little bit crazy, but I would say prioritize morphite buying over buying stuff like isogen, for instance, which is also in a very good purchasing spot at the moment. So yeah, morphite would be the one where I would pour a couple of 100 million ISK in, considering that buy orders, you can probably pick this stuff up at 8,600 ISK without too much trouble, as long as you don't pour billions in at that price range. Of course, then people are going to start to go above your price, but just, you know, 20,000, 30,000 of those at 8,600 I think should be doable. You should be able to pick that up, and then, you know, wait for 9,000, 10,000 is possible. We've seen that on high speculation, 20,000 is possible. So that would be very nice to have, and this would be one of those places where I would park some of my ISK personally. All right, next up after minerals, we've got some PI. Let's write down 2545. And I'm keeping up with pretty much the exact same times as last time. So PI, let's go. 6-month charts, please. Yep, there we go. Construction blocks, a bit of hesitation right here, but managing to stay well, just below 14,000 ISK. Let's see if I can bring this down, bring this up. Yep, there we go. So you can see that averaging price of 15,000 ISK have been possible, but only on select days. Currently around 14,000 ISK, a little bit lower than that, is still a very strong price for construction blocks. So there still seems to be ample demand for this stuff. The good news, I would say, is that CCP understand that you can't have alpha clones bring in potentially endless supplies of PI, so they can't do that, which means that if alpha clones somehow create some demand for that, fuel blocks is definitely a possibility, because they'll be able to anchor stuff if they really want to. Then this is a very strong position for planetary materials that is understandable, and that may actually continue because of the lack of supply coming from alpha clone state players. So it's looking pretty good. You can sell right now, and I think basically this market can remain quite strong. If this does remain throughout the expansion, maybe goes up a little bit more, then I would say that planetary PI skills become very valuable to train on every character that you can afford to do so, because it will become a decently good passive income, especially the higher the free-to-play player base becomes. Potentially a lot of those will get together, will have uses for fuel, will have uses for stuff that is used by and made by planetary materials. So I would say look to see if you can ramp up your production in that. I'm personally playing with the idea as well. My first priority are the engineering complexes, but after that, if I have ISK left, and then I'll probably look into a couple of plex just for training up my other characters for PI. Consumer electronics next. That one is actually taking a little bit of a dive down to 10,000, almost 11,000 ISK here. So last time we had that though, we saw a really big speculative increase in volume. So someone saw the opportunity to buy a lot of consumer electronics and actually did so. But it looks like we're basically in an oversupply situation. Yeah, there's very little demand. Supply still coming in, almost a full front page. So that's quite a bit of supply pushing the price back down. 12,800, they're trying to sell it at, but as you can see, a lot of people are also going to the buy orders to get rid of their consumer electronics. And so this means that at the moment it is possible to buy cheap consumer electronics, although keep one thing in mind, 10,000 to 11,000 ISK, if we look at the first part of the 1 year chart here, is actually just average. It's not such a bad price for consumer electronics that we can call the people selling for 10,000 to 11,000 ISK crazy. It's not such a bad price. So this is one of these that if you expect more PI demand due to alpha clone players, then trying to pick some of this up may be a good idea. If you're just in your PI making consumer electronics to sell straight to the market, it's not wrong to do so, because I actually think that you're just getting an average price at the moment, historically speaking. Of course, potentially it's a low price compared to what's coming, of course. Coolants are next, so you can see 6 months ago going for 9,000 ISK, currently going for 12,000 ISK. Not bad, definitely another strong place. Coolants used a lot in fuels, so I'm making a lot of that. The little bit of a dip may be because it has been announced, very importantly, I haven't spoken about that yet, that the facilities for the engineering complexes, so production and research, will actually cost less fuel, a lot less fuel than the 20 without bonus, 15 bonus in an engineering complex. Is actually going to go down to 12 just base fuel cost per hour, and then down to 9 in an engineering complex, I think. So there is definitely a reduction that should be going to do for the fuel costs of the engineering complexes, which may mean that some people are expecting a lower demand here. Next up, we've got enriched uranium. Again, just from this chart here, you can see that we're at a pretty good place, despite the drop from 17,000 ISK down to 14,500 ISK. It's still a really strong price. Definitely nothing to worry about if you're selling at the current price ranges. You can see 6 months ago, this stuff was going for 9,500. Mechanical parts next, also related to fuels, actually at a very high point here, 12,400 just a couple of days ago. So obviously climbing in price is there seems to be pretty strong demand right here, going up to 11,000 ISK. The sellers, well, they're already filling up, starting to fill up on the potentially high prices. So more than a full front page of new mechanical parts is probably going to stop the increase in price here. But 11,400 on average, yeah, 12,000 going for the sellers. We may go up a little bit here on the chart, but 12,000 does seem to be the plateau price for mechanical parts. Once sellers start to go below that, we'll just plateau off. But again, very strong position for mechanical parts, which I am making on one planet, so not bad. Next up here, we've got oxygen. You can see that there was again a bit of hesitation on some median daily price as low as 400 ISK, but we're going back towards 500 here. And let's take a look at supply demand. Supply very low, look at that, still a million coming in here, trying to sell for 500 ISK. Buyers basically starting to be forced up towards 475. So I think oxygen could head back towards 500 ISK here, which is not a bad place, although generally average. Oxygen is of course also only a P1 material, so you make that in ample volumes. It's not in the same category as all the previous ones. Robotics is the exact opposite, it's a P3, so this one is averaging a price of around 100,000 ISK. Current price range, yeah, definitely not bad. Again, look at the 1 year chart here, we're basically at the high point. So robotics, again, a little bit of a bump up in the last week as well. So supply is full front page, it's starting to come in. You can sell robotics for for more than 100,000 ISK, so that's definitely not bad. Is it on a volume increase? Maybe. Yeah, these couple of days here, increased purchases, increased volumes for robotics, increasing in price here. So again, very strong situation for a lot of this PI stuff. Rocket fuels next here, median daily price of 13,000 ISK. We may afford, I think, to push this chart back up a little bit. You can see again that we went as low on median price to 11,000 ISK, which on the average for the 6 months before this one was still definitely okay, but we're already bumping back up substantially. The median daily price of these is all over the place though. This is definitely a pretty weird one. Maybe the chart is just not exactly right, it's a little bit bugged or something. Still an increase can be seen in the last few weeks. Self-harmonizing power core next. Let's take a look at that. After dropping off substantially from 4 million to around 2 million after the Citadel expansion, this is obviously used in the structures. We went up basically in 2 steps to 2.75 million, but we stayed just below or at 3 million, which is definitely showing that the impact from the engineering complexes is much lower than the Citadels themselves, which had a peak at 4.4 million. So here a little bit of a higher price than average, so definitely a good price to sell. But if you need some of these to produce your materials for engineering complexes, it's definitely still affordable. It's not a completely crazy price. Supercomputers next. Yeah, definitely a very weird chart here because of these median daily price of 0 for some reason, so very difficult to say a lot about this. I'm just gonna remove this one, sorry guys, but it is gone. If you have any other PI materials that you want to see on the list, feel free to put those in the comments, and I'll happily put that in instead of the supercomputers, because it's annoying me that this chart keeps being wrong here. Even in the last week at the 25th, yeah, just 4 days ago, we again had this problem. So it's gone, guys. Sorry about that, but I can't deal with it anymore. Next up, supercomputers, slowly increasing price since August, currently going for 14,000 ISK. We had a speculative bubble here, or this was actually an increase in price with the Citadel expansion up to 20,000 ISK. So again, definitely a strong price here at the moment, and it's okay to try to sell, honestly. Test cultures next, bit of hesitation in August here, going as low as 6,500, currently going for 10,000 ISK. If you look at the entire 1 year chart, basically we are at the average price, maybe just below that, but unless the buyers are at like 8,000, they're definitely well below 9,000 ISK. You could try to pick some up here if you're expecting stronger demand. Then going for the buy orders may be alright. Average prices, this is alright actually. You could pick some of this up well below 9,000 ISK. You could gamble on a test culture investment actually, but if you're trying to sell and you can sell, well, actually no supplies coming in, so this is gonna put some pressure on this. Yeah, test cultures, one of the few PI materials here that you may want to hold on to, may not want to sell, and may want to try to pick some up on cheap buy orders here. I think the increased volumes here are actually trying to do exactly that, because we did go as low as 6,500, and then you can see that the volumes came roaring back to push the price back. So yeah, this market does seem to be watched very closely by some investors. Wetware mainframe next. Again, this is Citadel bubble up to 4.8 million. Here we have lows of 2.3 million and currently going for 2.8 million. Again, it's a good price if you can make these and try to sell them, but if you need them for your engineering complexes or Citadel, it's still quite affordable. Next up, Tech One ships, 37 minutes. Lazy mode, sorry about that, I actually completely forgot, but we're going to check the same ones again. This time I may actually be able to show a bit more of the volatility in a good way, because I found out how to do the scrolling stuff a little bit better. So here's the Blackbird chart. We had a very low bottom to 6.7 million here, but the averages, as you can see, is right around 9.3 million, and we're right around that at the moment. So a little bit under pressure actually. Median daily price going below 9 million at the end. So we have a lot of supply, not a lot of demand, right? We come from a low activity summer. Hopefully the expansion and the alpha clones can change that a little bit. It's a cruiser, so this should actually be flyable for alpha clones. Celestis next. Here again, as you can see, the Tech One charts are decently flat, which is actually pretty normal, because of course the Tech Ones are the baseline economy, and actually a flat chart is a good chart, because then you know exactly what to expect. It's in my opinion alright to have stable prices in the Tech One market, but why do we want to keep an eye on it? Because of course the alpha clones could change this quite drastically. So averaging 9 million, just above that, we're actually coming off in the last few days from a low point to 8.5, 8.7 million, but we're basically recovering back. Yeah, a couple more sales. Did the volumes go up? Let's take a look at that. Nope, not really. It's just low activity right now is causing the Celestis to dip below 9 million, but just a couple of purchases is probably going to push it right back up. But you can see very low demand for these ships as well. So if you think that there may be a Celestis doctrine coming for alpha clones, then trying to purchase some of these, right, on the buy orders, which are as low as 8.2 million, may be a good idea. But very few people seem to be interested in the Tech 1 market, which means that despite the low volumes, we have decently stable prices. Look at that, 32 million ending at 31.5 million. This is the coveted chart. You do have a volume spike here, increasing your price. Unfortunately, I do think that basically, well, actually here is the Rorcal change. So this came in, someone bought 200 of them in 80 orders, so it's not just a uniform increase in price. Yeah, maybe someone decided to invest in a coveted fleet all of a sudden, but the supply has been filled back up very quickly and we're back on our average price. Not much to spot here. Cyclone market next. Again, if you can try to push this up a little bit and then down a little bit, it's pretty handy, but you can still see that we are averaging 44 million basically for a cyclone, and that despite one dip here on increased volumes, one blip here, an increase in price up to 48.4 million. This is not even something that you're gonna make speculative money on. It looks more violent because I pulled it out, of course, than it actually is. Decently stable cyclone market. I think this one is often used in Nullsec actually, so very low demand. Again, this is throughout the entire Tech 1 market is one thing that we notice is very low volumes on the buy orders here. The sell orders sometimes were empty, sometimes in popular ships like the Cyclone we actually do see quite a few of them coming in. Next up here we've got the Dominics. That is the epitome of a flat chart because of this one data point. So can I just scroll that one away and try to see a little bit of volatility? Yeah, look at that. You can really make a nice chart that does show at least the slight volatility that did happen, but averaging 200 million. This is just up to 220. This is down to 190. So this is just like a 30 million ISK gap between these two. Not a lot to say here. Basically normal market variations. Demand actually a little bit more decent for the Dominics. It's of course a very strong PvE ship, and supply is decent as well, although, well, half a front page including 68 in the last 24 hours should help with the stability here. Next up we've got the Dragoon. Oh man, that's again that's just crazy. We're definitely switching out for next week, but data blip at 23.6 million. Someone basically somehow managed to sell a crazy sell order here, which, considering the amount that we see available and the buy orders, is not entirely surprising, but it's pretty crazy that someone would be willing to pay 23.6 million for a Dragoon. And on that day the volumes of course are, well, 54.27. It's really weird that you get this data point here on a median daily price. Next up we've got the Merlin. Is that chart looking a little bit better? Yes, it is. A Merlin under pressure quite strongly. Alright, finally a Tech 1 ship where something is happening. So averages first at around 400 million, currently averaging 280 million. Definitely a decrease in price for the Merlin. We have strong supply, I guess it needs to be, and then demand at 200,000, not million, 200,000 here, 300,000 ISK. And very strongly under pressure here, the Merlin, going for very cheap prices. If we look at the rest of these 1 year price chart down here, we can definitely see that we are at all-time low points. So also baseline Caldari ship, something that pretty much every alpha clone that makes a Caldari character is going to fly at some point. So it may be okay to actually try to purchase some of these Merlins, but of course it's only a frigate. If to produce this takes very little effort, so it's still a bit of speculation basically that the average price is going to go up substantially with the alpha clones, which I think it may, but a lot of people, apparently only very few people, are willing to actually invest in the Tech 1 market at the moment. Next up we've got the Prophecy, one of my favorite ships, actually doing quite okay, averaging around 58 million here, and very little to see on this price chart here. 60.7 million for the sellers, 54.8 million for the buyers. So basically one thing that I may note here is battleships know a bit more variation because they're not in the meta. And this is the Raven PvE battleship. You can see lower supplies in these can cause some more price fluctuations because of the lower volumes. But in general, the Tech 1 market is very stable, which I think is very good news considering that before, oh man, when was that? I think it's the Crysis expansion. Quite a few years ago, CCP basically overhauled the industry window to this new one. The entire industry system was changed because we no longer had a limited slots in facilities for our industry. We could basically always put up as many jobs as we had skills for. And there was a bit of a worry that would this basically gut or cause real problems for the Tech 1 market, the Tech 2 market for production in general. But it looks like all of that went very, very smoothly. And now we're basically in the same situation because we have Tech 1 ships that are very stable in general, but we do get the new engineering complexes coming, which may switch or change the industrial landscape quite a bit. And so hopefully the impact of that is not going to be bad for the game, but will maintain a decently stable Tech 1 market at least. Some more speculation on other stuff would be cool. For instance, the simplification of the amount of services that you need. In a POS, you need different services for large ships, for medium ships, for small ships, for munitions, for drones, rigs, equipment, you know, that all those are separate services that you have to anchor up. All of this is now basically compounded into a single service for the engineering complex, which means that in any engineering complex with a production facility, you will be able to make all sub-capital ships, all equipments, all munitions, all drones, everything. Even I think other citadels can be made from there. That is actually one thing that could impact industry in general. It could potentially flatline a lot of those other goods as well. Stuff like drugs, I think, will be able to be made there. So it's still step one. It's only the engineering complexes, basically the simple POS facilities, all the arrays, all the equipment array, small ship arrays, all that stuff is being replaced by one facility, one service in an engineering complex. So we still have the moon mining changes and the potential changes, of course, to all of the, what are they called? God damn it. I think it's in manufacturing that we get the reactions. So this is where the real challenge is going to lie for the production and for the industry side of things. But yeah, the engineering complexes could already have an impact on industry, and it's going to be interesting to see what they'll do to the market, in my opinion. So this is why we're definitely keeping the Tech 1 ship market, because there are two forces at play: the free-to-play players, the alpha accounts, which could fly stuff like the Thrasher. What will it do to the price here that has been flat for 6 months to an entire year at around 1.2 million? And what will the engineering complexes basically providing potential production to anyone from just one service in a lot of stuff? What will that do to the market as well? Could be very interesting. And then later on in the year, of course, when CCP is planning to change moon mining, to change reactions and all of that stuff, that's where the juicy stuff could come actually. That's where we could potentially make a lot of money if we invest in the right stuff, basically from this point out. And here is the Tristan, a little bit more volatility at the tail end here, quite interesting. I do think that this could be alpha clone speculation, although it would be strange to start doing this in August and September. But for ISK making purposes, for the PvE purposes, I think that the Galente alpha clones will be the most popular by far, and thus Tristan demand could be up, which means we're paying a little bit more for that one. Supply is quite ample. You can see that more demand here means a bit more activity, a bit more variation, a bit more speculation, and the Tristan seem to be the winner of that one, which I think Galente ships may actually indeed be the most interesting, because I expect a lot of people to make alpha characters for ISK making purposes. I think you'll be able to push a Galente alpha clone to become the best alpha clone ISK maker. That's my personal expectation, of course. Next up, some Tech 2 ships. We're still keeping the same ones there. 49 minutes. 49. There we go. Take a look at that. Basilisk. Yeah, basically we are at a chart that is post-Citadel expansion, which means that we are at a full chart that is after the tax changes, and unfortunately the biggest swing in 6 months is from 200 million to 240 million, which is a 20% jump, but on average all of this is too slow and too flat to make real trade money on. It used to be quite different. If you look at this, if I add this part below, before the last 6 months, where you had high points at 300 million and low points at 190 million, and then here you had actually average prices of 250. This is where you actually could make a little bit more money in much shorter order than the chart right here. So it's quite unfortunate, but I was expecting it when they first announced the tax changes, that the Tech 2 market could actually be impacted by it quite drastically. Does this mean that it's useless to take a look at the Tech 2 market? Here again the broadsword now slowly edging down, but here is the biggest speculation from 240 to 280 million, and it's basically one opportunity in the last 6 months. Is it useless to keep an eye on the Tech 2 market? No, but you need one major thing to happen in order to be able to make some money here. Is you need a nullsec war. Only active destruction of these ships, active use and destruction of these ships is going to make you speculative money. The broadsword at the moment, for instance, is going very cheaply. The broadsword is a heavy interdiction cruiser, which is used quite a lot. So it may be okay to pick some up right now, since they seem to be at a pretty cheap price. But will you be able to make some money on speculation, on active trading in this market? Nope, unfortunately not. Here's the Cerberus next. This was not bad, from 200 million to 260 million, and decently fast as well. But I think that this was with the Shadow of the Serpent event, where a lot of people did go for Cerberus to use in those sites. And for the rest of it, honestly, it's just basically a bit of meandering at around 220 million. So you rarely get actual buy opportunities. You get a couple at 200 million here, which is apparently a decent price. But at the moment, yeah, there's just 200 million to 220 million over 2 months. You're not gonna make a lot of money here. The Damnation next, of course, this one knows a bit of an increased price because of the boosting changes. People are expecting more of these to be flown. So this one was one thing that we could have done, is to try to purchase some Damnations early on, where we knew that boosting changes were incoming. But that was, of course, completely CCP dependent and remained a big gamble. Next up here is the Hound Stealth Bomber. Again, just, this is interesting actually. This is very interesting. A dive down all of a sudden from averaging price of 20 million down to less than 16 million. There is just basically no buyers here. So if you can pick a couple of hounds up here at the moment, but yeah, everyone left the Tech 2 markets, then yeah, buy for 17 million. Try to do that. If you can pick some up here, this is probably okay to do. So it's weird, the buy opportunities that seem to form here for the first time in the Hound in quite a while is because there are 0 buyers in JITA for Hounds at the moment. So honestly, guys, I would jump in on that myself. If none of you guys are going to do it, I'm going to put up a couple of buy orders here, try to pick up a few cheap Hounds. I could fly it myself, this ship. It's not a bad ship, and in case of a war, it's going to be in demand. So don't let me down here. Try to grab some of these, reflatten the charts so that my Tech 2 reading stays the same. Next up here we've got the Kronos. It's of course completely different because it's a Marauder, costs 1.2 billion. There was some speculation here, right? You could definitely make 1.5 billion on average, not too bad. 1.4, still you make some money, but of course the volumes here are so different that it's very difficult once again to make money on this. Raptor, Interceptor, yeah, basically flat at around 25 million, not much to say here. Saber is next. Let's take a look at that. A bit more volatility in the Saber, that's interesting. Again, it's an interdictor, so actively flown from 48 to 50 million, that's not bad. This is one, and this one is not either, I think. 45 to 52 million. It's not bad. Maybe a bit of money could have been made here. And now we're slowly going down. Average price 47.3 million. Still a little bit too high, but if the buyers are low enough, yeah, you could consider buying a couple of Sabers as well. But again, make sure that you do so for the long term, because I would only speculate on this if I'm willing to wait until a nullsec war breaks out. Here is the Stork, doing a strange chart because it has not existed for more than a year yet, and we could pull this one up a little bit. So this one was nice, from 58.7 million up to 87.9 million. Definitely not bad here again. But I think that the difference here is that it's basically a new ship, and so not a lot of people have the production lines of these set up, and so a couple of players are basically, and by players I don't mean individual players, but probably alliances, are producing and controlling the Stork market, and as a result you do get a bit more volatility in this one. Next up we've got the Widow. Let's repair our 6-month chart here, like that. Going up in price substantially, but to 1.1 billion. Of course, this is not a ship that you're going to buy 50 or 60 of them on active trades volumes or below 10. Still looks really cool though, the Widow. God damn, that looks good. So yeah, Tick 2 markets at the moment, I'm still going to keep it. What I'm hoping for is a big winter war and increased prices, finally some volatility. Maybe it will come back, maybe not, but I'm definitely willing to keep the category until a nullsec war breaks out. If after that it's completely dead again, then I think we may switch it to like interesting ships in general, just a different category. And next up, Take 3 market at 56.10. All right, 56.10. Let's take a look at that. The Tech 3 market at least is a bit more interesting. Here, for instance, is the Confessor market. Went up from 43 to 48.2 million, so staying below 50 million. What's supply looking like here is where it gets interesting. Full front page, including 64, 20, 30, 10. I think the Confessor is under pressure. Again, I thought all of them would settle at a little bit below 50 million, but from 48.2, I do think we'll go back down, and 43 million was a slight buy opportunity, although the increase in price, yeah, it's more than 10%. You could have made a little bit of money on that, but unfortunately, supply is flooding back already, so I suspect that the Confessor may come under pressure if the other destroyers are also oversupplied. So let's take a look at the Hecate, also slightly under pressure, going down to 44.5 on average, 44.8 for the sellers. A fresh supply starts here, so more than half a front page, including 38 as the latest sell order. I would read that as Hecate and Confessor under pressure, but the Confessor more than the Hecate. Next up we've got the Jackdaw. Maybe, let's see, 46.7, a little bit higher. Is there more supply of this? Full front page, including 69 and 54. So from somewhere there is very recent supply coming in on these markets. So this should push the price back down a little bit as well. And then we have the Zwepel finally, which is also under pressure, going as low as 46 million. So fresh supply, more than a front page. Yeah, this is a lot. 20, 20, 53, 23, and in the last few minutes here, or maybe in the last hour, 68, 65. So all of them are under pressure, but I think they'll meet at 45 million. And so the question is, after that, let's say all of them meet at 45 million. If you then still spot a sell pattern like this, it's normal that in the Zwepel you have two front pages of new Zwepels, because it's still at the highest price, 47 million, pretty much. But I think all of them are going to meet at around 45 million. But then if an oversupply happens, it could form a buy opportunity in that specific destroyer, because all of them still have a decent amount of fresh supply coming in every day. If we look even at the Confessor here, which is at actually Oh, sellers are actually at a decent price. Average price was 48. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Confessor was already at 48 million. So yeah, this one will be under pressure. And you can see that it is full front page, including 64 here. Sveppel as well. So it'll go down a little bit, but watch for them to meet at a certain price range. And then if we then still see the oversupply popping up in some ships, you could actually start to see some real buy orders, buy opportunities. The cruisers next here, Legion under pressure, going down to 160 million on fresh supply, almost the front page. This is still decent though, not completely crazy. Loki next, also slightly under pressure, 160 million, meeting each other. And fresh supply, half a front page, a decent amount. This is doable for a stable market. Next up we've got a Proteus. What is that one looking like? Yeah, slightly under pressure, settling at 160 million yet again. Fresh supply, 10, 10, 20, 11, pretty much in line with the Legion. Seems to be okay as well. And then we've got the Tengu here, which is settling at 160 million. Yeah, I'm expecting this pattern to show up in the destroyers, like in the upcoming weeks as well. And fresh supply, half a front page, 1879 here, looks quite okay. So it's actually decently interesting to watch all these Tech 3 ships settle in certain price ranges, a little bit higher than the summer slumps. So this was definitely a good money maker. I only made a move on Confessor and the Jackdaw, but both of those trades did make me a decent amount of money on the increasing price after the summer. Now everything is settling at the new normal ranges, so around 160 million for the cruisers and around 45-46 million for the destroyers. The question is now, what comes next? We could get into the bad situation of no major war, which will probably mean increased activity, increased supply, and maybe another buy opportunity, or a nullsec war could actually jump the prices back up. And so this is definitely where if you want to make some money on trades, you need to keep a close eye on the Tech 3 market for any ships that the producers accidentally oversupply, push the prices down to decently low prices, especially if there's low demand, like here, the Hecate, 43 million for the buyers, 44.8 for the sellers. It's definitely pretty cheap, and if just 4 of these buy orders get filled, you're at 41.5 million for the buyers. 42 million for a Hecate is very cheap, and despite that you still have 38 of them coming in here, so this could be a slight opportunity in the Hecate market itself. I would like to see some more supply. So if we see like half a front page of Hecates in this situation, you can definitely expect a buy opportunity to form. But at the moment, I would say this is what you need to do. Keep a close eye on the Tech 3 markets. Watch out for oversupplied ships that are below the averages of all the others. That's where you can probably pick up a few of them. And then if a war happens, you're probably sitting really golden with the purchases that you will have made, because I think that increased activity will only increase the amount of buy opportunities that you're going to create. We're still, generally speaking, decently low at these price ranges, although of course the cruisers have recovered with 200 or 300 million. So I think you'll have a better chance to do so in the destroyer market. That's maybe a bit of confirmation bias because I made 2 good trades in the destroyer market myself. But yeah, very interesting time here. Stabilization in the Tech 3 market, but the potential for oversupply in all of those does exist, and so possible opportunities may be on the horizon. And if a war happens, these are probably really good trades to be made. I'd have more confidence in cheap Tech 3 ships than in cheap Tech 2 ships. That's my personal opinion, of course. And then at 1 hour and 3 minutes, 103, we are going to take a decently big category. I'm going to talk about the advanced moon materials. So was it materials and then reaction, advanced moon materials right here. The reason I want to touch on this is because after the engineering complexes, the next big expected changes, as I've said before here, are the changes to moon mining, changes to potentially reactions as well, and this could have a very big impact on this market. So here we can, for instance, see the crystalline carbonate. It knew a decently good high point in August, but we are basically settling and decently flat at the current rate of less than 200 ISK for every crystalline carbonate. Now, I'm not saying go crazy on speculation, but I'm saying consider maybe buying a little bit of those, especially if you see them at 6-month low point and things like that, because the changes could potentially have a major impact. They will definitely trigger speculation. Unfortunately, I have to be honest, we don't know any of this. I have never even picked up any rumors on what CCP is planning to do for the moon mining. If they're basically planning to democratize that, you could say, so make that available in more places like low sec and high sec, who knows, then it could actually crash the price, of course. It's a possibility. On the other hand, moon mining has always been a major driver of conflict in nullsec, and one thing that players have always called for is make the existing moons depletable, so they move around in the universe, so that we get more fluidity in the most powerful, most interesting regions to own, and as a result you'll have more war and you'll have more conflict. And if CCP goes that route, then of course we could see some major higher prices in these moon materials. So that is the gamble that you're basically taking, and let's take a look at some more of these prices. Here is the fermionic condensate. So this is the expansion, 0.11 million, currently going for 54,000 ISK. Decently average, probably decently affordable as well. If you look at supply, yeah, definitely a very good supply of these. Ferrite carbides. Alright, this one I wanted to share with you because I made this trade, so it's obviously not the right time to buy this. We went up to 200 ISK and you could have bought them for 100 ISK. I had this trade. I bought at 100 ISK and I think I sold at 170, something like that. So in this trade range. So keeping an eye on 6-month low charts from time to time is not a bad idea. So ferrite carbide, I would not invest in that at the moment, because you should be able to pick that up for 130 on a good day. But I made this trade and that actually made me a decent amount of money. Next up here we got ferrogel. Decently stable, decently low as well. So if you see dips to 26,000, you may want to pick a couple of this ferrogel up. I think in fact I bought, is it ferrogel that I bought? So I started very timidly. I put my first 100 million. I think it was in ferrogel. If it's something else, I'll notice it, but I think it was this icon. Next up we've got fullerenes. Again, I made this trade as well, so I bought the fullerenes at this low point, 470, and then I sold them around here at around 700 ISK. So the 6-month low stuff is actually pretty damn important, especially in the summer, and again here, successful trade for me personally. I do think that when I bought it, I mentioned it in an EVE talk, so it's not like I kept it completely in the dark, but it's true that advanced moon materials is not something that I check every week, so that's more of a personal project if I invest in those. So again, I would not be buying at the moment. 700 ISK seems a bit expensive considering the entire chart, but keep an eye on it, and maybe some other ones could be interesting. Here for instance, hypersonatic fibers, decently stable, and looking okay towards an average price here. So if you're looking for some stuff to invest, nanotransmitters, going decently low, in fact 2000 ISK here. Low points are just 2000 ISK, buyers are at 2000 ISK. Yeah, some nanotransmitters I think, you know, would make sense if you want to take the gamble. Of course, I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying I'm slowly purchasing some of these. And non-linear metamaterials, could be this one as well. It's the same icon that I actually purchased maybe on this price point at 18,000. I think I may have done that. I think this may have been my buy of 100 million here, which is at this little dip here. So you could have already made some money, but we're already back down to 18.73. Yeah, you could probably 18,000. Try a couple of buy orders for these as well. Phenolitic components next, actually just at a decently higher point at the moment, so I wouldn't invest in these, but keep an eye on it, right? It should be under pressure at the moment. Then the photonic meta materials. Ooh, that's interesting. Look at that, averaging 10,000 ISK. Buyers are well below that. Yeah, 9,000 ISK. Here is where I put. Here is where I would buy 100 million of this one, because we're at a 6-month low on the daily averages. 5-day moving average still below 20-day moving average. This is a nice chart to try to pick some of this up. If again you want to take the gamble, which I'm going to take the gamble a little bit as I'm selling more plex. I'm gonna put some of the money in this, I think. Next up, plasmonic materials. All right, basically averaging 8,900, decently low. Buyers are at 8,800, very low. But if you just wanna have this stuff ready, I would say it's okay to do so at the moment. The fibers here, ooh, again, pretty interesting, averaging 255. 268 here, so under pressure. You can see the 5-day moving average. Supply at 268. Someone is selling for less than 270. Buyers 257. Yep, again, ceramic fibers. I would not. I would probably put a little bit of ISK in this one. Terahertz materials. Average basically, so there's better stuff to buy, but you could probably invest in this as well if you have a lot of ISK. Titanium carbide looks to be at a higher point actually, so I would say maybe wait a little bit for this one. And then tungsten carbide is slightly going up, but definitely still in affordable ranges. So yeah, very interesting. I would say the moon materials, I did one check of these and I noticed, which one was it, this low point and this low point. I made those trades. I made a decent amount of ISK on those, but now I would say that it is a good time to look at the moon materials because of the potential moon mining changes. But again, don't go crazy, right? Don't spend all of your ISK. But some of these are actually also in decently interesting places, such as here the ceramic fibers, to actually just invest a little bit and be ready potentially for a good trade on them, but also potentially for the moon mining changes. So this may come back a little bit more often, some of these moon materials, because I do think it's going to be an interesting one. Not sure exactly how I want to cover it, but just yeah, be notified that I'm keeping an eye on this one just personally on my off time as well. And I'm slowly probably going to move into investing a little bit in this stuff, because if CCP goes for moon mining, has to become a nullsec conflict driver, then things could go pretty crazy. Anyways, that's going to be it for this EVE Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.